Girls, I don't think I can do this.
What's the problem?
That right there is a girl's store.
Papa, there are no girl stores. Gender is an outdated societal construct created by the patriarchy to keep women down.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
Papa,
Yeah?
put your big girl panties on and let's go.
So you only need three things from your local hobby or fabric store. You need 1/2 yard of marine vinyl, 1/2 yard of batting, that could be cotton or polyester, and some foam cushioning. The batting will smooth out your cuts on the cushioning before you put the marine vinyl over it. As far as the cushioning, there are a lot of choices. I'll show you what I got. I did spend more money on that than anything else in this project because that's very important for comfort. Tools and hardware that you're going to need include a tape measure or a ruler, some multiple kinds of cutting instruments, a T50 stapler and 1/4 inch staples, some super glue, 4 bolts, 4 split locking washers, 4 fender washers, and 4 wing nuts. The first thing you're going to want to do is prepare your bolts, which are going to serve as the anchor for your seats. You're going to take the bolt and then the split locking washer and put that on the bolt. And then you're going to go ahead and take the fender washer and put that over. These are the seat bottoms that we didn't show cutting in the first video. They are 9.5 inches wide by 10 inches long. You'll note that one end is not rounded. That part is going to go to the seat back, so it doesn't matter. The holes that you made for the bolts should be very tight to the point where you cannot get them through without using a tool. In my case, I'm using a ratchet. And then on the platform itself, they should be somewhat looser to the point where you can, lift up and put down the seat without a tool, but it should still be very snug. We're going to securely and permanently glue these down, so before you proceed, go ahead and ratchet them down and make sure it fits on the platform the way you expect, because you will not be able to undo this step. Go ahead and take your super glue and you're going to lift up the fender washer and apply it underneath where the fender washer is going to be contacting the wood. Then you can push the fender washer down and we will be ratcheting it down in a minute. Do the same thing to all the bolts. The reason we're doing this, and it might seem like overkill, is so that we never have to remove the cushioning and covering because we have a loose bolt on the seat itself. Now you want to go ahead and apply that super glue to the split ring washer on top of the fender washer where the bolt head is going to make contact. And you can also apply some to the threads itself if you'd like. Now you can ratchet or screw down the bolts until they're very tight, and then you're going to allow the super glue to cure. It just depends on the particular super glue you're using for how long that will take. Once that's all done, go ahead and apply some super glue to the heads of the bolts. Now we can get to the fun part, which is cutting the foam. In this case, I got high density chair pad foam. This is 3 inches thick. It's very supportive. To find the right one, I actually had my kids sit on different pieces that were available in the store and finally decided on this one. Here I've got one of the two pieces and I've taken the seat back and laid it down on there and used a Sharpie to mark where I'm going to cut. We can use the support to see how long it needs to be, so there is a bit of excess once I've cut this. I used all sorts of tools. This is a razor blade. Um, you can use that to do some cutting. Scissors will come in handy, but the one tool that I found most useful was a electric carving knife. This is great for getting through the long cuts that you're going to need to do with this. We're going to speed this up, but you want to go slow and make shallow cuts and kind of pull the foam away as you're doing it because the pressure of the foam will kind of lock the blades sometimes. Originally, I was going to make 3 seat backs, so I actually cut 2 here, but really we only need to cut 1, and then you're going to cut that in half, since ultimately we did a 1.5-inch seat back. At this point, I hadn't decided that 3 inches was just way too thick for the seat back, but here I show you how to cut the seat back at an angle as well as the seat bottom so that when you assemble it, they slide in together. At this point, you're going to have a bunch of sharp angles on your seat back and seat bottom when you're cutting it. So you're going to go ahead and trim and kind of make a beveled edge. When you do this, it's going to be pretty tedious going through and it's going to look really ugly. But once you put the batting and the vinyl on, you won't notice that at all. Here we've got one of our seat backs fully cut and trimmed. You can see it looks pretty ugly on the edges, but that's okay. I've also cut it in half so that it is 1.5 inches instead of 3. Once we put the batting and the vinyl on, you won't even be able to tell that it looks so ugly underneath. So we're going to go ahead and cut our materials. When cutting your materials, it's always better to have a little extra that you can trim, obviously, rather than too little. So we do some excess here. And you'll see the batting's pretty thick. Once that gets pressed down, that's what smooths everything out. This is actually my first attempt at ever upholstering anything. So I did watch some YouTube videos of some pros, and this method here, we start on the sides, staple both of those down, and then we go to the corner or the top and pull that down, and then we start working in the corners. If you've never upholstered before, I do recommend checking out some of those videos. You'll see here in the corner we do a fold, and then we keep folding them in and stapling, and then eventually we start cutting off the excess. There's probably someone who's done this before could do a much better job, but it did turn out pretty well. You just have to keep smoothing it out as you're doing that so that you don't get any creases on the front. The staples here at the bottom on the front will actually be hidden by the seat bottom, but I also painted the board black as well. At this point, you can go ahead and insert your seat backs and see how it's going to look. Here are the two seat bottoms that I've already cut, and if you need to do any cleanup at this point, You'll notice that the one side has a 45-degree angle. That's the side that's going to go into the seat back, whereas the opposite side just has kind of a beveled edge. So from our previous step, we've glued those bolts down, and these are actually going to cover that. This seat bottom is about finished at this point. The excess just needs to be cut off, and then I need to do the second one, and then we can assemble. At this point, your seat is done. You can assemble it and put it on the bike. You'll notice in this one I did do vinyl over the base. However, in the revised version where I have the longer base, I just painted the board black instead. What you want to do is just finishing touches, paint the wood that may be exposed black, and then you're going to want to put a 1/4 inch plywood or some other 1/4 inch material over the back of the seat backs to cover up the staples, and then you'll screw those down with some sort of nice screws that you can get from the hardware store.